This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 411, entitled The Future History of the Masculisting of Men. Description. This flyer describes the probable 7 phases that the future masculisting of men, that is, their gender political empowerment, will go through before both feminist and masculist movements can afford to disappear from the scene. Now, the flyer itself. Make it a bit bigger. The Future History of the Masculisting of Men by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. What do most men do when confronted face to face with feminists who attack men for the ways that men oppress women? In most cases, they simply shy away, feeling defenseless to answer back, and certainly do not attack these feminists with the male equivalent of their own game. Most men are as monoconscious as most feminists. That is, they have heard a lot about feminist ideas over the past few decades, as feminists take ever greater control of the media, but know nothing about masculist ideas, so feel impotent in face of a concerted feminist attack on men. So usually they just sheepishly slink away, not knowing how to respond to such a feminist onslaught. Feminists feel emboldened by this almost universal monoconsciousness, feeling justified that gender oppression is a one-way street, so feel motivated to publicly lash out at men for the ways that men oppress women. Of course, over time, this feminist monoconsciousness will dissipate as masculist ideas spread throughout the culture, which is only a question of time, particularly once the journalists and media people catch on to the very exciting idea that feminism is only half the story, and that there's another half called masculism that will change society as profoundly as did feminism, which effectively pushed women into careers, adopting the traditional male role of being a paid worker who worked outside the house for a wage. I see the empowerment of men via masculist ideas, that is, the masculisting of men, going through several historical phases, which I label: A. The masculist educational phase. B. The masculist media phase. C. The feminist resistance phase. D. The female masculist phase. E. The biconscious, monoconscious, feminist split phase. F. The feminist masculist resolution phase. G. The post-gender politics phase. I now elaborate on each of these historical phases, one by one. A. The masculist educational phase. The 7 phases listed above will probably take decades to unfold. Second and third wave feminism has been with us for over half a century now, and still many millions of women around the world have yet to be influenced by feminist ideas, that women should be given the same legal rights as men, that women should be free to follow their careers, control their own bodies, etc. Similarly, I'll be very surprised if the above 7 phases have been completed before I die, and I'm currently 73. My father reached 100, and I'm aiming to do the same. So I'm saying that it's unlikely that the above 7 masculist phases will be completed within a mere 3 decades. Why do I say this? Because the whole masculist cause is only at the very beginning of phase A, that is, the masculist educational phase. It's only recently that masculist ideas themselves have been largely crystallized and formulated well enough for masculist theorists, like myself, to be in a fit state to present them to the world public via the internet. So we have a long, long way to go. Now that the masculist ideas have been formulated, the time is now right for them to be spread, which is why I and many others are putting up videos on Masculist and MGTOW, that's men going their own way, websites on a regular basis, aiming to educate millions of men that men too are gender politically oppressed by women, and that women's oppression of men is far worse than vice versa, since women have always been such parasites of men, living off men's labour and money, so that women can raise her kids in a middle-class house that he pays for. It was the pill, the contraceptive pill, that changed everything. It allowed women to reliably control the number of kids they wanted, and they wanted 0, 1 or 2 in most cases. Men not only gave women the pill, but also household gadgets, science-based medicine, so that women's life expectancy is now well into the 80s. So that even those women who have their 2 kids and stay home to raise them for 6 years until the second child goes to kindergarten still have a career window of half a century. This careering of women, aka that's also known as women's lib, then enabled men to stop paying the heavy traditional price of being a manslave to a woman, working for her in exchange for getting a bit of sex from her from time to time. Thus feminism, that is women's lib, liberated men from manslavery. This in turn resulted in the formation of the Masculist movement, which started saying to women, quote, "Now that women can work, they must work. Anything else is manslavery." In the early days of feminism, there was no effective masculist movement, so women remained monoconscious. That is, they knew nothing about masculist ideas, so kept their traditional expectations of men, seeing men as cash machines to pay for women to have babies, which was the traditional role of men in the era when nuclear families often had a dozen kids, so that the role of the stay-at-home mother was a full-time job, and the role of the father was to be the manslave, working outside the home to earn the money that kept the whole family alive. If he failed in his job of bringing home the bacon, then the whole family starved. However, those days are over, thank God. So now women, with their 2 kids or less, are routinely entering the workforce and earning good money, so that they have become much less financially dependent on men. They have become what the Masculists call FIPs, that's financially independent persons. This fipping of women has had a dramatic effect on men, liberating them from manslavery. Unfortunately, even in today's age, 80% of young women at the critical age of 16 in high school choose to become what the Masculists call fluffy crappers. That is, choosing fluffy crap majors, that is the soft option of memory-based majors, such as English literature, history, languages, etc., and not the hard option, where you have to think, such as math and the sciences. The fact that 80% of young women today still expect to be fluffy parasites of men's money in a historical era in which women can work motivates Masculists to put real moral pressure on women to fip up or be punished by being totally ignored, not even pumped and dumped, so that their fluffy parasite genes are removed from the gene pool. In brackets, a fluffy, based on the word fluff, is a Masculist label for a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off the money and labour of a man. To Masculists, fluffies are manslavers, hence slavers, and hence are hated, and hence severely punished by Masculists. The above is the gist of Masculist thinking, But in 2021, almost all feminists have never heard of such masculinist ideas, partly because the media is largely controlled by feminists now, who see men who complain about women, even if those women are fluffies, as misogynists, and are therefore to be opposed. So masculists are having a hard time getting their message across to the general public to educate the masses, the millions, into masculist ideas. This is the end of part 1.